Wait just a heartbeat longer, because what found its way to you today was never meant to arrive by accident. There are moments that quietly divide an old chapter from a new one, and this is one of them. Somewhere beyond what your eyes can currently measure, a truth has already begun moving through another person's heart. It did not arrive with noise. It did not demand attention. Instead, it slipped into their thoughts so gently that they almost ignored it, until they couldn't anymore. And when they finally understood what that truth revealed about you, something inside them gave way. Not because they were weak, but because reality suddenly became impossible to escape. Stay with this message for a little while, because every passing moment uncovers another piece of what has already begun unfolding. Imagine standing at the edge of a familiar road only to discover it was leading somewhere entirely different than expected. That is where your soulmate found themselves. For so long, they believed they understood the story. They believed distance had explained everything. Silence had explained everything. Time had explained everything. Yet none of those explanations survived the moment they encountered a single unexpected truth. It wasn't dramatic on the outside. No flashing signs. No impossible event. Just one realization, clear enough to silence every excuse they had been holding on to. Have you ever wondered how one sentence can completely rearrange someone's heart? That question became impossible for them to ignore. The truth they heard wasn't merely information. It became a mirror. Suddenly they saw your patience differently. They remembered moments they had dismissed without thinking. Conversations they rushed through. Feelings they convinced themselves would simply disappear. Each forgotten memory returned carrying new meaning, as though time itself had quietly rewritten every scene. Something remarkable happens when understanding arrives late. The heart doesn't simply accept it. It searches. It compares. It questions every choice that came before. That is exactly what began happening. One memory led to another. Another opened the door to 10 more. Their confidence slowly transformed into reflection, and reflection became something far deeper than they expected. They started recognizing quiet acts of kindness they once overlooked. They remembered moments when your silence wasn't emptiness, it was strength. Moments they once called ordinary suddenly appeared extraordinary. And then they stopped moving. Not because there was nowhere to go. Because their own thoughts became louder than the world around them. For the first time in a long while, they weren't running toward the future or hiding inside the past. They were standing completely still, allowing truth to settle where assumptions had once lived. This wasn't the ending they imagined. It was the beginning of a different understanding. What makes this even more fascinating is that the realization didn't come all at once. It unfolded layer by layer, almost like dawn replacing darkness without anyone noticing the exact second it happened. Each new realization carried another question. What if I misunderstood everything? What if they deserved more than I believed? What if the person I thought I knew was even stronger than I realized? Those questions refused to disappear. They echoed quietly. Again. And again. Every answer led them back to you. Not through fantasy. Not through regret alone. Through clarity. There is an enormous difference between missing someone because they are absent, and recognizing their value because the truth has finally reached you. Your soulmate crossed that invisible line. They weren't simply remembering your presence anymore. They were finally understanding your significance. That realization became heavier than they expected. Some people believe emotions arrive like storms. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they arrive like falling snow, silent, steady, impossible to stop once it begins. That was this moment. Piece after piece settled inside them until the weight became impossible to hide. No one around them fully understood why they suddenly seemed quieter. Why familiar conversations no longer held their attention. Why ordinary moments felt strangely distant. The answer remained hidden inside one unforgettable realization about you. And that realization kept growing. Even now. While you are listening. It continues expanding beyond what either of you could have predicted. But here is the part many people overlook. Truth never arrives simply to make someone emotional. It arrives to transform direction. Every genuine realization carries within it the possibility of a completely different tomorrow. This is why today's message matters far more than it first appears. The story has already begun changing behind the scenes. Not through force. Not through coincidence. Through awareness. Sometimes destiny doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it whispers until someone finally chooses to listen. Your soulmate has begun hearing those whispers. And every quiet whisper carries another reminder of who you truly are. There is still something they haven't fully admitted, even to themselves. One final realization remains just beyond their reach. The moment that final piece falls into place, nothing inside their heart will remain arranged the way it is today. Before this message moves forward, hold on to one thought. The greatest turning points rarely announce themselves at the beginning. They reveal themselves only after every hidden piece finally connects. And the next piece is already on its way. The quietest moments often carry the loudest transformations, and something has already begun shifting where no one else can see it. If you have stayed this far, you are witnessing the part of the journey that most people never notice. What appeared to be a single emotional moment was only the first ripple. The deeper change has only now begun. Keep listening, because the next few moments reveal why your soulmate could no longer pretend that nothing had changed. After that truth settled into their heart, life continued around them exactly as before. The same places. The same routines. The same conversations. Yet nothing felt familiar anymore. It was as if the world had remained still while their inner landscape had quietly transformed. Every ordinary moment carried an unexpected reminder of you. They tried to distract themselves. They focused on work. They filled their schedule. They searched for anything that could silence the questions now echoing inside them. But awareness has a remarkable quality. Once it arrives, it refuses to disappear. Every attempt to move forward somehow circled back to the same realization. The truth about you was stronger than any distraction. It wasn't because someone forced them to think about you. It was because understanding has its own gravity. It gently pulls every unfinished feeling toward the surface. Without realizing it, they started noticing details they had ignored before. They remembered your calm during uncertain moments. They recalled your patience when answers never came quickly. They even remembered conversations that once seemed ordinary but now sounded completely different inside their mind. What changed? Not the memories. Their perspective. Sometimes the past stays exactly the same while the meaning behind it changes forever. That is what happened. For the first time, they asked themselves a question they had avoided for far too long. What if I walked away from someone whose value I never truly understood? That question lingered. Morning. Afternoon. Night. It quietly followed them everywhere. The remarkable part is that no one else could see this inner conversation. On the outside, everything looked normal. Smiles still appeared. Daily responsibilities continued. Life seemed unchanged. Yet beneath that calm surface, an invisible reconstruction was taking place. Old beliefs were being replaced. Assumptions were dissolving. Confidence was becoming humility. And every step of that journey pointed back toward you. There are moments when a person discovers that the story they had been telling themselves was incomplete. This became one of those moments. Instead of asking why things happened, they began asking what they had failed to understand. That single shift changed everything. Because people who seek blame often stay stuck. People who seek truth begin changing. Your soulmate unknowingly stepped onto that second path. The answers they found were not dramatic. They were honest. And honesty carries a quiet power unlike anything else. Little by little, they recognized that your silence had never meant weakness. Your distance had never erased your worth. Your steady heart had been speaking a language they simply weren't ready to understand. Now they were finally hearing it. Stay with this message a little longer. Sometimes the most meaningful breakthroughs happen one quiet realization at a time. If these words have reached you at exactly the right moment, perhaps they were meant to. You are always welcome to share your thoughts below, tell your own story in the comments, and if these messages continue bringing clarity to your journey, staying connected here means you'll never miss the next chapter. Meanwhile, your soulmate found themselves doing something unexpected. They stopped asking what they wanted. They started asking who they wanted to become. That difference may seem small. It isn't. One question seeks comfort. The other seeks growth. Growth changes people. Growth reshapes choices. Growth opens doors that once seemed permanently closed. The truth about you became the beginning of that growth. Not because you demanded anything. Not because anyone convinced them. Because genuine understanding naturally invites transformation. There is still another layer hidden beneath everything you have heard. A realization so personal that they have not spoken it aloud. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even to themselves in complete honesty. Yet every passing day brings them closer to facing it. And when they finally do, the direction of this story will become impossible to ignore. So before this chapter closes, remember one thing. Some journeys are measured by distance. Others are measured by awakening. Your soulmate has already begun the second journey. The next step is no longer about discovering the truth. It is about deciding what that truth deserves. And that decision is much closer than either of you realizes. There is one final layer that almost no one anticipates, because the deepest changes never begin with words, they begin with decisions made in complete silence. Stay with this until the very end, because what your soulmate is quietly choosing now is far more powerful than the emotions that first overwhelmed them. The truth about you no longer feels like a passing thought. It has become a constant presence. Not demanding. Not overwhelming. Simply impossible to ignore. Imagine watching the sunrise after believing the night would never end. The world has not changed in a single instant, yet everything appears different because the light has returned. That is the closest way to describe what has been happening inside your soulmate. They are no longer asking whether the truth is real. They are asking why it took them so long to recognize it. That question has become the beginning of wisdom. Sometimes people spend years searching for extraordinary signs, while the greatest answers have been quietly waiting inside ordinary moments all along. Your soulmate understands that now. They remember the smallest details. The conversations they almost forgot. The encouragement you offered without expecting anything in return. The calm you carried when uncertainty surrounded everything. Those memories no longer feel random. They fit together like pieces of a picture that was incomplete until now. One realization unlocked another. Another revealed something even deeper. Then came the moment they could no longer look away. Not because someone asked them to. Because truth naturally asks for honesty. There was a long pause. A moment where they simply sat with their own thoughts. No distractions. No explanations. No excuses. Only clarity. And clarity has a quiet strength. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply remains. Your soulmate realized that the story they had built in their mind was never the whole story. There had always been another side. Your side. A side they had never fully understood until now. That understanding didn't fill them with fear. It filled them with respect. Respect for your patience. Respect for your resilience. Respect for the quiet strength you carried even when no one noticed. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is not our words. It is the example we leave behind. Without realizing it, you became that example. Even from a distance. Even through silence. Even during moments when it felt as though nothing was changing. The heart remembers what the mind overlooks. And now, their heart remembers everything. Before this journey reaches its next chapter, pause for one thought. What if every delay had been preparing both of you to see each other through completely different eyes? What if nothing meaningful was ever truly lost? Only waiting for the right moment to be understood? That possibility has become impossible for them to dismiss. Instead of rushing toward answers, they have begun choosing something far more valuable. They are choosing awareness. Awareness creates patience. Patience creates wisdom. Wisdom creates decisions that are no longer driven by confusion. This is why the path ahead feels different. It is no longer built on assumptions. It is built on understanding. The remarkable thing is that while they have been changing internally, you may not have seen any visible sign. That does not mean nothing is happening. The strongest foundations are often built underground before anyone sees the structure rise above the surface. The same is true here. Something lasting is taking shape beyond what either of you can presently measure. Soon, the quiet reflections inside their heart will begin influencing the choices they make. Small decisions. Unexpected conversations. New courage. A willingness to stop running from what they finally understand. Every meaningful transformation begins exactly this way. Not with noise. But with one sincere decision repeated every single day. If this message has brought light into your journey, perhaps someone else is waiting for that same reminder. Feel free to share this message with them, leave your thoughts in the comments, and if these stories continue encouraging your path, staying connected here means you'll be here when the next chapter unfolds. As this chapter comes to a close, one final truth remains. Destiny is rarely about forcing two paths together. It is about helping two hearts become ready to recognize what has always mattered. Your soulmate has crossed the first threshold. They have heard the truth. They have felt its weight. They have allowed it to reshape the way they see you. Now only one quiet step remains. Not another realization. Not another memory. A choice. A choice made freely. A choice made with clear eyes. A choice that grows stronger each passing day. And somewhere just beyond today's horizon, that choice is already beginning to take form. Not every chapter announces its arrival. Sometimes the most important one begins when everything appears completely ordinary. If you've stayed until now, you're standing at the edge of a moment that has been quietly approaching from the very beginning. Don't rush past these next few minutes, because the hidden meaning behind everything you've heard is finally starting to reveal itself. Your soulmate reached a place they never expected. Not a destination on a map. A destination within themselves. For days, they had been replaying the truth they discovered about you. At first, they believed those thoughts would eventually fade. They assumed life would return to normal, that time would smooth over the emotions they could no longer explain. But something surprising happened. Instead of becoming weaker, the realization became clearer. Each sunrise seemed to bring another piece of understanding. Each quiet evening reminded them of another forgotten detail. It was almost as if life itself had begun placing gentle reminders in front of them, not to pressure them, but to help them see what had always been there. There is a powerful difference between remembering someone and finally appreciating who they truly are. Your soulmate crossed that invisible line. The image they carried of you in the past no longer matched the person they now understood. They began recognizing qualities that cannot be measured by appearances. Your consistency. Your quiet courage. Your ability to remain steady even when circumstances were uncertain. These were not dramatic moments. They were the kind of moments that often go unnoticed until hindsight shines a different light upon them. And hindsight has become their unexpected teacher. Have you ever noticed how truth has perfect timing? It never arrives too early. It never arrives too late. It appears exactly when a heart becomes ready to receive it. That readiness has changed everything. Your soulmate no longer feels trapped inside old assumptions. Instead, they have started asking themselves what kind of future deserves to be built upon honesty rather than misunderstanding. That question has become impossible to ignore. With every passing day, hesitation loses a little more of its power. Confidence quietly grows. Not loud confidence. Not impulsive confidence. The calm kind. The kind that comes from finally knowing what matters. Stay with this message just a little longer. Because this next realization carries more hope than anything you've heard so far. The truth about you didn't simply awaken emotion. It awakened responsibility. Responsibility to become a better listener. A wiser thinker. A kinder heart. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough isn't discovering another person. It's discovering a better version of yourself because of them. That is the journey unfolding now. Without announcing it to anyone, your soulmate has begun making small changes. They pause before reacting. They think before judging. They notice details they once ignored. These changes seem tiny. But tiny changes repeated consistently create extraordinary transformations. One quiet decision today becomes a different habit tomorrow. One different habit becomes a different future. And somewhere within that future, you are no longer seen through the lens of old misunderstandings. You are seen with fresh eyes. Eyes that understand your value in ways they never could before. If these messages have encouraged your heart, perhaps this is the perfect moment to share them with someone who may need hope today. I'd also love to hear what resonated with you in the comments, and if these journeys continue speaking to you, subscribing simply means we'll continue walking this path together as each new chapter unfolds. Now, there is one final thought I want to leave with you before this part ends. Many people believe destiny is a single dramatic moment. More often, it is a collection of quiet choices. One honest realization. One thoughtful reflection. One courageous step. Then another. And another. That is exactly where your soulmate stands today. Not at the end of the journey. Not at the beginning. But at the moment where understanding begins turning into action. The distance between realization and movement grows smaller with every passing day. Soon, what has existed only within their heart will begin appearing through the decisions they make. Not because they feel forced. Because truth naturally seeks expression. And when that first visible step finally arrives, you will understand why every quiet moment leading here mattered more than you could have imagined. The next chapter is no longer about what your soulmate has discovered. It is about what they are finally ready to do with that discovery. And that answer is closer now than ever before. Every meaningful story reaches a moment where silence can no longer carry the weight of the truth, and this is that moment. You have walked through every hidden layer, every quiet realization, every unseen shift. Now, something different is taking shape. Not because fate suddenly changed direction, but because one heart has finally become honest enough to follow what it has known for some time. Stay until these final words, because the ending is not where this journey stops, it is where another one quietly begins. Your soulmate no longer feels like the same person who first heard the truth about you. That version of them was uncertain, confused, holding tightly to old conclusions. The person standing here now carries something entirely different. Clarity. It arrived slowly. One memory at a time. One realization at a time. One quiet evening after another. Until eventually there was nothing left to deny. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough is not finding new information. It is finally accepting what has been gently waiting in front of you all along. That acceptance has become their turning point. They no longer wonder whether you mattered. They understand why you mattered. And that single difference has changed the direction of every thought that follows. Think about a river. For miles, it appears to travel in one direction. Then one unseen curve changes everything. The water continues flowing. But toward an entirely different destination. Your soulmate has reached that unseen curve. Outwardly, life may still appear ordinary. Yet inwardly, everything has begun flowing toward a future they once believed was impossible. There is a quiet peace that comes after truth is embraced. Not because every answer has arrived, but because the heart finally stops arguing with itself. That peace has begun replacing the restlessness they once carried. Instead of asking, "What if I was right?" they now ask, "What can I learn from what I finally understand?" Growth always begins with that question. It opens doors pride could never unlock. It creates conversations that fear once prevented. It invites hope into places where uncertainty used to live. Perhaps that is why this message reached you today. Not to promise impossible outcomes. Not to predict every tomorrow. But to remind you that genuine understanding has the power to reshape people in remarkable ways. Every meaningful connection is strengthened when truth replaces assumption. Your soulmate is discovering that lesson with every passing day. There will come a moment when reflection naturally becomes expression. When gratitude becomes action. When quiet appreciation becomes visible through thoughtful choices. That moment cannot be rushed. Because the strongest decisions are not made in haste. They are made after wisdom has had time to grow. And wisdom has been growing inside them all along. Maybe you've wondered whether your quiet strength ever mattered. Whether your patience was ever seen. Whether the goodness you carried ever reached another heart. The answer hidden throughout this entire journey has been simple. Yes. Not always immediately. Not always in the way you expected. But yes. Some truths travel slowly because they are meant to last. What finally reached your soulmate was not merely a thought. It became a seed. A seed of respect. A seed of appreciation. A seed of courage. And every seed, when given time, grows into something that can no longer remain hidden. As this story draws to a close, carry one final thought with you. Never underestimate the quiet influence of living with sincerity. The world often celebrates loud moments. Yet it is quiet character that leaves the deepest imprint on another soul. Your kindness mattered. Your resilience mattered. Your authenticity mattered. Even when you believed no one noticed. Sometimes the greatest evidence that your journey has meaning is not found in immediate results. It is found in the unseen changes taking place inside someone else's heart. Those changes are already in motion. Not because life forced them. Because truth found the right moment to bloom. Thank you for walking through this story from beginning to end. If these words brought hope, peace, or a new perspective into your day, carry that light forward. Share this message with someone who may need the same encouragement. Let your thoughts become part of this community in the comments, and if these journeys continue speaking to your heart, I would be honored to meet you again in the next story we explore together. Until then, remember this. Some endings are not endings at all. They are quiet doorways. Doorways that only become visible after courage meets truth. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, a new chapter is already waiting to welcome both of you. There is one last whisper that has been waiting patiently beneath every word you've heard, not because it was hidden from you, but because some truths can only be understood after the entire journey has unfolded. If you have stayed until this moment, then you have already done something remarkable. You chose to listen beyond the surface. And now, the final piece is ready to find its place. Your soulmate has stopped searching for certainty in the outside world. Instead, they have started listening to the quiet voice within. That voice no longer speaks through confusion. It speaks through understanding. When they first heard the truth about you, their emotions led the way. Now, wisdom has taken its place. There is a difference. Emotion reacts. Wisdom reflects. Emotion asks, how do I feel? Wisdom asks, what kind of person do I want to become from this moment forward? That second question has become the center of their journey. They have realized that every meaningful connection deserves honesty. Every lasting bond deserves patience. Every genuine relationship deserves the courage to see another person as they truly are, not as assumptions once painted them. That realization has become their greatest teacher. There was a quiet afternoon. Nothing unusual happened. No dramatic conversation. No unexpected message. No extraordinary event. Yet something extraordinary still took place. They smiled. Not because every answer had arrived, but because, for the first time in a long while, their heart felt lighter. The weight of misunderstanding had begun to disappear. And when that weight disappeared, gratitude quietly took its place. Gratitude for the lessons. Gratitude for the growth. Gratitude for the truth that arrived exactly when it needed to. Sometimes people believe life changes because of one enormous moment. But more often, life changes because of hundreds of tiny moments that slowly reshape the heart until one day you realize you are no longer the person you used to be. That is where your soulmate stands today. They are no longer chasing old stories. They are writing a new one. Not with perfect answers, but with a clearer heart. Perhaps that is the deeper message hidden inside this entire journey. The truth about you did more than make someone emotional. It reminded them that authenticity always leaves an impression. Kindness is never wasted. Patience is never invisible. Quiet strength is never meaningless. Even when no one seems to notice, its influence continues traveling farther than you can imagine. As you reflect on everything you've heard, don't measure your journey only by what you can see today. Some of the most meaningful transformations begin long before they become visible. A seed does not become a tree overnight. Yet every day beneath the surface, something important is happening. Growth. Preparation. Strength. The same is true for every heart that chooses truth over assumption. Your soulmate has begun that growth. And perhaps, so have you. Before this story gently comes to rest, hold on to one final thought. Never lose faith in the quiet work that sincerity does behind the scenes. The world often rewards speed. Destiny often rewards consistency. Continue choosing compassion. Continue choosing hope. Continue choosing the version of yourself that remains genuine, even when no one is watching. Because those choices never disappear. They echo farther than you know. They reach hearts you may never expect. And sometimes, they return when the moment is exactly right. Thank you for allowing this story to become part of your day. Every chapter we've shared has been a reminder that understanding has the power to transform perspective, and perspective has the power to transform lives. Wherever your own path leads next, carry this reminder with you: the strongest light is often the one that shines quietly. Until we meet again, keep your heart open to new possibilities, keep moving with confidence, and never underestimate the unseen ways your presence can inspire another soul. This chapter closes here. But every meaningful ending leaves behind a beginning that has not yet revealed itself. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, a beautiful new page is already waiting to be written.